They've been running the show for 150 years, but the NCAA is about to make a historic move that could cause the beginning of their end.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. On this episode of Locked On ACC, we'll talk about updated ACC rankings from CBS Sports, if they got it right. Updated top 10 quarterback rankings from Joel Klatt of Fox Sports. Is the ACC getting enough respect? But Kenton, college sports is about to change, I think, in more ways than people realize, because every time we peel another layer from this House versus NCAA settlement onion, a new revelation comes out, and we're expecting this settlement to pass. The lawyers have put way too much time and money in this. House versus NCAA, this settlement that's going to create revenue sharing. It's going to change the NIL landscape completely. And it's also going to change enforcement. I was downright shocked when I saw this, Kenton, but NCAA President Charlie Baker, who might be putting himself out of a job here, revealed that the Power Conference's response to the lawsuit is to create an entity, the College Sports Commission, he said. The point behind that was to have an entity that would see the cap management system and the third-party NIL system have rules associated with both, create enforcement parameters for violating those rules under the rubric that would be the theoretical injunction. So that's a lot of legalese to say that, Kenton, the NCAA is taking their own enforcement power away. All that stuff they've been doing for the last 150 years of supposedly enforcing the rules of amateurism, they're going to punt that football over to the Power Four commissioners who are going to appoint their own CEO. And then I'm not sure what the NCAA has left to do, because if the NCAA gives up their own enforcement power, I think that's the beginning of the end for that organization.
The beginning of the end was when it began, if we're being quite honest here. The inception of the NCAA and the phrase student athlete came to deny a young man workers' comp because he had a severe traumatic brain injury while on the field. Like, let's stop with all this grandstanding about the NCAA and amateurism is the right side of history, and they're the people who should be propped up as players who are fighting for their worth or admonished. With all due respect, NC State did not come and sit on my mom's couch. Coach Falk didn't come sit on my mom's couch and say, hey, your son has an intelligent mind. We think that he'll do great things for our, College of Humanities and Social Sciences. That's not why NC State was there. That's not why Coach Doran called me up. It was, hey, we think that he's going to be a hell of a football player for us one day. We'd like to, have your son down here, whoop-de-whoop, so on and so forth. That is what we are looking at here, okay? With what we're talking about now, bringing it to present day in terms of what we're talking about with the Power Four getting their CEO situation. The president of the NCAA is realizing I'm fighting a losing battle. I'm Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill eternally. At this point in time, he realizes, hey, I've got nothing left to do. I can enforce rules. Even if the NCAA tried to keep enforcing, guess what would happen? You keep getting handicapped. And at that point, why would member universities keep paying you money? Why would the racket keep going of, well, we're paying them because what? Because they keep you all in line? No, they don't. Because they keep things uniform? Do they really? The minute somebody wants to break from uniformity, all they have to do is file a suit and they can win. So I don't think that this is the NCAA destroying themselves as much as realizing the facade is over. The curtain has been pulled back. The wizard has been exposed as a fraud. Let's go home. It's done.
Yeah, because, the NCAA, I guess, can still serve a purpose, because there's probably a lot of stuff in terms of the non-revenue sports that the Power Four and the new CEO of that commission are not going to want to deal with. So they'll let the NCAA handle the stuff that doesn't involve billions of dollars, right? The stuff that involves thousands of dollars, but stuff that doesn't involve billions. And honestly, I think that this move towards this commission that's going to be, again, created by the Power Four conferences, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on which side of the fence you're on. For those who are college sports traditionalists who want it to be like it was in the 70s and 80s, and you don't like the adaptations, we're moving farther from that. Like, we are moving farther away from amateurism, Kenton, because in a lot of ways, the NCAA has been an obstacle to the power conferences, right? It's been, hey, we got to deal with this at NCAA enforcement. So now that you basically let the inmates run the asylum, I think we're going to move a little bit more towards the capitalistic model and the money making without the NCAA standing in the way of that. Right now, here's the thing. Anybody who has written about this, like we are going to talk about on the Squad episode tomorrow, an ESPN article about selecting the new CEO of college sports. I was just reading a Sports Illustrated article about it on their NIL Daily section. Nobody can give a good answer as to how the new College Sports Commission is going to have an easier time enforcing rules than the NCAA did, because you're still going to have the same roadblocks when it comes to antitrust lawsuits and every state law being different from all the other states. And so I don't really think anything changes, except, like you mentioned, the NCAA is basically just passing off the stuff that they couldn't accomplish. They're passing it off to another entity now.
Absolutely. They're waving a white flag. And when you talk about what is going to come out of this or what's going to happen as a result of this, at the end of the day, this is very clearly like you said, amateurism's gone. We're not going back. And there will now be somebody that hopefully, because it's appointed by these four in conjunction with one another, there will be more acceptance of those rulings. The only problem is they're not even all of the FBS conferences, right? Like, these are not even, this isn't even half. You think of it, you've got the Power Four group of six. Like, you're less than half of all the teams, and yet because you make the money, you're making the decisions. Obviously, people are going to be unhappy about that. There's going to be something talked about there. And at the end of the day, this is like that Ayn Randian thing of like, hey, where big bureaucracy has held down the special for too long. And now the people who are super special are going to be free to do as they please. So I don't look at it so much as the inmates running the asylum as it is. It's much more of a situation where there's much less tethers on everybody in terms of what you can do. The problem is removing those tethers and removing those guidelines benefits certain programs exponentially more than others. So I'm intrigued to see how this is going to shake out. But at this point, it's too late. It's too late to stop it. This ball is it's a bowling ball of butcher knives rolling downhill already. Nobody wants to stop it. And so the NCAA is clearly saying, hey, we can't stop it, but we're going to get out of the way of it. Good luck. Y'all have fun.
And what you said, got me thinking. These changes are potentially a threat to non-Power Four schools, because they're not going to have any say in how this enforcement happens. They're not going to have any say in who the CEO of this College Sports Commission is going to be. So they get left out of the negotiating table. And I would also imagine, going back to something I was saying earlier, that this could be maybe a detriment to the amount of attention that non-revenue sports get. Because again, like, when you hand over, the power to, if the power comes from within, from the Power Four, I would think the decisions that they make are going to be in the best interest of the sports that make them the most money. So I'm not saying that the non-revenue sports are necessarily going to get cut, even though Kirby Smart did hint that could happen. Maybe he knows something about that. I'm not necessarily saying they get cut, but I think they're going to get a lot more attention, and they're going to have a lot more weight in the decisions that get made moving forward.
I mean, you're not wrong at all. And I think another thing that we should look at here, as much as people pretend that we don't have the biases that we do, if you're selected by the Power Four, what does your seat look like? Do you get to keep that seat? Is it permanent? Does it have 5-year terms? Does it have 2-year terms? What does that look like? And if there is terms and the Power Four are the only ones that are saying, hey, we approve or we disapprove, you're only 1 or 2 decisions that hurt the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, or Big 12 away from no longer being in that seat. So if you really like that seat, that could make you pretty impartial on some rulings and some decisions. And again, we're saying this as ACC guys. We're saying this as guys who are technically on the winning side of this. You're going to run into some problems with the CEO situation. It just seems like to me, the NCAA said it's more trouble than it's worth. We're going to throw our hands up. Y'all handle it.
Yeah. You know, they claim in, like, I was reading an ESPN report about this, that the CEO, they may already know who this person is going to be. They claim it's going to be someone like from outside of sports. Sports fans are not necessarily familiar with this person, which probably means it's not going to be Nick Saban, which is someone a lot of people are speculating on, or Tommy Tuberville, who's a senator, and he's very involved with it. So it's probably not going to be Nick Saban or Tommy Tuberville. I don't. It's going to be maybe some bean counter, some accountant type or CEO from another part of the world that's not in sports. So we'll have to find that out. All right, so let's talk a little ACC football. Joel Klatt, who is probably a bit of a Big Ten homer, who covers the Big Ten for Fox Sports, has released his top 10 list of quarterbacks for the upcoming season. 2 from the ACC made the cut. Was anyone snubbed? You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Guys, we've been having a blast all postseason long with FanDuel. The NBA playoffs have been so good. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. I'm also having fun with the Stanley Cup playoffs. My Florida Panthers are 7 wins away from a second straight Stanley Cup, which is exciting. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Guys, live betting is a game changer. You may not have a good feel on the game before it starts, but, let's say one of the NBA teams starts things off on a 5-0 run. You want to get in on it, or the hockey team you're rooting for takes a 1-0 lead. The odds will update live and dynamically throughout the game. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, check out our other shows. Kenton, Gibbs, and Grayson Boone host Locked On Wolfpack, taking you through everything NC State. I host Locked On Canes, talking all things Miami. Kenton, Miami's quarterback did make the cut in Joel Klatt's top 10, much to your dismay, I'm sure. He ranks Carson Beck at number 10 in the country, Klatt does. Despite the fact that Beck was ranked number 1 by Klatt heading into last year. Beck didn't have the best of seasons. His receivers also led the nation in drops last year at Georgia. But to you, is Carson Beck a top 10 quarterback in the country?
No. In terms of in the entire nation, no, I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. But when I say that, I do also want to put this caveat on it. I do think he's on the cusp. I do think he's right outside of 10. It's not like this is an exclusive club and he's in the wrong city. No. He's in line for the club. He just ain't been let in yet. The bouncer's got to check his ID out, make sure it's good. He's there. He's right there. But to me, again, as much as everybody says, factually, Donno is speaking facts when he says receiving core had the most drops in the country. That's a fact. That's not what anybody wants it to be. That's not what anybody thinks it is. That's a fact. But there also are a lot more opinions floating about his supporting cast that are not backed up by other facts. Offensive line's terrible. 3 of them were going in the top 100 picks last year. Like, what are we doing here with, the offensive line can't block a soul? They seem to be blocking well enough for NFL teams.
But let me give you some facts. Like you just gave, it is factual that they just had 3 offensive linemen drafted. but it is also factual that
Mhm.
they were 57th in America in sacks given up, which is bang average, and also factual that they were
Right.
102nd in America in rushing, which is way below average. The offensive line doesn't have everything to do with that, but they have a lot to do with team rushing. So those were some areas where the
I
offensive
agree.
line wasn't that good.
I agree. I agree. But you know what? Also, and this is where certain facts, and now we get into the how the interpretation of the facts leads us to opinions. Because we can say, hey, they were 102nd because they just weren't good at running the ball. I would argue with the receiving core that had that many drops and a quarterback that is, what else do teams have to worry about? Hey, they've got a quarterback that is very average, and they've got a really good offensive line. Load the damn box. However many they have, we're going to put one more in the box and make them beat us through the air at all times. You know, it's interpretation at that point. Again, I'm not saying Carson Beck is terrible. I'm not saying that, and I know that it sounds like it because a lot of people see the clips. You see the little bit of me talking about Carson Beck. I'm telling you, the totality of this is he is a good quarterback. Top 10 in the nation to me is a very special class that honestly a lot of these guys on the list do not belong in. A lot of these guys on the list I will put behind Carson Beck.
All right, so let's go through the rest here. You got it. Let me go through all of these, Kenton, and then we can comment. Number 9, Luke Altmaier from Illinois. Number 8, Lenora Sellers, South Carolina. Number 7, DJ Lagway at Florida. Number 6, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Drew Aller at Penn State, our dude. Sarcastic a little bit. Number 5, Sam Levitt, Arizona State. Number 4, John Mateer, now at Oklahoma. Number 3. Arch Manning at Texas, number 2. And I'll give Klatt some credit. Well, you know, people call us ACC homers, you and me. So someone referred to us as a propaganda show the other day. I mean, okay. Cade Clubnik at Clemson comes in number 1. Cade number 1, but Arch Manning number 2. I know you've got a hot take on Arch.
I want to know this about Arch Manning. Donno, let's talk facts one more time. Can we? When was Quinn Ewers drafted?
Oh, 7th round by my Miami Dolphins.
He was drafted in the 7th round, and yet Arch Manning took his spot from him via injury, correct?
Yes.
But the spot was given back when he was back healthy. If he could not start over a guy who was a 7th rounder, where is this idea that he is this new greatness coming from? I don't understand it for a multitude of reasons. The biggest one being, if he was as good as people believe he is, we would have seen a Wally Pipp situation. For those of you who don't know, Wally Pipp was the player before Lou Gehrig. He had a headache that many people believe was a hangover. Lou Gehrig starts. He never starts again. Nobody ever hears from Wally Pipp again. This would have been the reality if Arch was who people think he is. If Arch's last name was Jackson, if it was Donno, if it was Gibbs, if it was Herbert, if it was anything else, nobody would care. Nobody would care. But because it's Arch Manning, we got to sit here and pretend that he's this new hotness. And I'll tell you this, either I'm wrong about, either I'm right about Arch Manning, or Steve Sarkisian don't know what the hell he's doing, and Texas need to get him out of there. Either I'm right about Arch Manning and he's or a team that was said to have one of the best rosters in football that was held back by a bad quarterback left a good quarterback on the bench just because for kicks and giggles.
Now, okay, so with Cade Clubnik at number 1, I feel that it's a combination of who Cade Clubnik is, who his coaches are, and who his receiving core is. I think that the powers, all of those factors unite to give Clemson arguably the best quarterback situation in the country. But who do you think out of that list is actually the most talented quarterback in America? Because I really have a soft spot for Sam Levitt at Arizona State. I think that, you know, there's a couple in there that I think are probably individually better than Clubnik. I don't think Cade Clubnik is number 1 overall pick this coming year. I think that there are other quarterbacks that are better. I just don't know if there's another quarterback who has the combined situation. Also, Klubnik goes up against ACC defenses. A lot of those other quarterbacks on that list go up against SEC and Big Ten defenses.
Oh, stop it. Sam Levitt is going up against Big 12 defenses. His defenses aren't that crazy different from what Cade is going up against. If I'm talking about talent, one for one, in terms of who I could throw in any situation, and I think they'd be good, I hate to say it because people are going to call me a homer, but based on what I've seen from Cade Clubnik, he is the most universal in terms of all the different systems he could fit in, all the different things he could do, because he's figured it out as of late. Now, if you're asking me best passer, like, hey, we're going to be Bill O'Brien and we're going to force you to throw the ball, regardless of how athletic you are, we're going to force you to stand right here and throw the ball, I'd probably say Garrett Nussmeier is the guy for that. He doesn't have the movement ability, but in terms of his ability to process and let it fly, very high level stuff. Great arm. He can make every throw, as they say, and he processes the game well. He's just a statue. He's just a guy that if he rushed for 40 yards on my team, heads would roll, positions would be lost.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, do you think, this is not locked on SEC? Hypothetical, though, for a second. When LSU fans see that list and that Nussmeier is number 6, they probably feel like he's criminally ranked way too low. I think he's ranked a little too low at number 6. I'm sure that they're raging about that.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you something. Anytime you put my quarterback behind Drew Allen, it's them fighting words. Those are fighting words. If I got a top-tier guy and you're putting him behind a quarterback that was literally his team's detriment last year, they're literally his team's downfall, despite having a first-round tight end, despite having 2 backs that had they gone into the draft this year, they might not have been first-rounders, but they wouldn't have had to wait very long, despite having a left tackle that was a first-rounder, despite having all of these pieces that were great around you, you were the limiting factor, and people keep believing in you every year. It's like Groundhog's Day. Oh, this is his year. He's going to get it together. Oh, this is his year. He's going to be great. Oh, this is his year. This is his year to beat up on Minnesota like it was last year and like it was the year before that. It is not his year to be an elite quarterback. So, I could absolutely see LSU fans upset there.
Yeah. Coming up next, is there at least one ACC quarterback that should get more consideration? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new Locked On ACC. Kenton, I'm kind of wondering what has changed, over the past 5 months without any new games being played, because I put myself in a time capsule, and I was looking at an article that was written right after last year's Heisman Trophy ceremony, December of 2024, so like 5 months ago. And it was like a way too early preview of next year's Heisman. And one of the first names that popped on that list was Kevin Jennings from SMU. 5 months later, no new games have been played. I mean, maybe that was written before SMU, played in their playoff game. But so maybe one more game has been played. But Kevin Jennings, like coming off that 2024 season, was getting some hype. This is a guy who didn't even start the entire year last year, but threw for 3,245 yards, 23 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He's also a threat to run the football, had 354 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. So 28 total touchdowns to 11 turnovers. And again, didn't even start the entire season. And, this is like 5 months later with no new games being played. Kevin Jennings isn't getting any love. Why? And do you think he deserves more?
He absolutely deserves more. And let me tell you something very interesting here. Even if you thought, they were dominated by Penn State in such a way you can include him. Why not? Penn State had this guy, some edge rusher of sorts. I can't remember the young man's name right now. I think he was pretty good. I think he was all right. I think he was Abdul something or another. I don't know. He was pretty good. They had a bunch of guys get drafted off that defense as well. Yeah, something along those words. I don't know. Paul Abdul, Carter Abdul, something along those lines. No, but seriously, Abdul Carter was fantastic. He is who he is. Kobe King, fantastic. How many players did they have that got drafted this year from that defense? So if that game was your proof, oh, he's a bad quarterback. Well, I have bad news for you about almost every quarterback that saw Penn State's defense last year. I have heart-wrenching news for you. I have very heart-wrenching news. So with that being said, Kevin Jennings, to me, he's in the club. He's in the club of that top 10 quarterback to me. He don't got to wait for the bouncer to let him in. He's in there. I wouldn't say he's in a VIP grabbing drinks with all the baddies and all that, but he's in the club. He's getting his two-step on in that top 10 quarterback club, in my opinion, because, again, he has been fantastic, and he'll have an opportunity this year that a lot of these quarterbacks won't. This team will be a team that wins or loses by him. Either he will show up and carry this team to wins, or he won't, and they will need him to carry them to some wins because, again, they're losing a ton of production. Yes, Lashley always does well in the portal and all that, but still, you've got to acknowledge, you've got to bend the knee and say, hey, every knee must bow and every tongue must confess. He's the guy if he shows up and gets it done again this year.
Well, something we'll get to this on our next episode, our next full episode on Friday, because I want to devote enough time to this. CBS Sports updated their ACC football rankings heading into next year, so I want to get into that. By the way, Kenton, when you were talking a little earlier about being the ACC homer before you brought up Klubnik, I thought you were going to put CJ Bailey into the top 10. I was like, oh, he's when you said you were going to go full homer, and we'll see, because I'm high on CJ, and if CJ is auditioning this year to be the next Miami quarterback in 2026, I'm all for it.
Ho. See, this the problem. This the problem down there in Coral Gables. They always messing with our player. CJ, don't you listen to him. Don't you listen? We love you in Raleigh. Nobody loves you like Raleigh loves you. You know what I mean? They didn't even think you was good enough to offer you early, okay? But no, seriously. CJ's another one of those guys. I would say he's waiting in line too, just further back behind Carson Beck, because he has so much to prove. He has so much to prove, and he's going into his first season with a full offseason as the guy. Last year, that man was slow dancing at prom and was thrust in to be the guy out of nowhere. So, it's a very tough situation. And for him to still lead that offense and show promise at the end of the year, that's big time.
No doubt. Huge shout out and thank you to Kenton Gibbs. Always a good time, and make sure you check him out at TGIF_Kenton and check out his show, Locked On Wolfpack. You can check me out at Alex Donno and on Locked On Canes, and we'll talk to everybody next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.